She was cast out by her own people for loving the wrong man, left to die in a wasteland with 2 newborns in her arms. But when she knocked on a stranger's door, what she found wasn't rejection, it was a fire that would spark a rebellion. Across the stars. This isn't just a story of survival, it's about love, defiance, and the power of one human choice that changed everything. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to this channel and show a thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's jump into the story. The wind howled over the scorched plain as Mariel walked slowly, each barefoot step sinking into the soft dust. The sky above her was gray-green, a swirling sea of clouds that never broke. Her robe, once a soft gold, now clung to her thin frame in torn strips. She held her twin babies tight against her chest, their small faces buried in the fabric. They had stopped crying hours ago. Now they were quiet, too quiet. Mariel's silver hair was stuck to her cheeks, damp from sweat and tears, her legs shaking. With every step, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. The gates behind her had already closed with a final echoing boom. She had begged them. She had stood in front of the council on her knees, offering to leave peacefully, but they wanted a spectacle. Her people had gathered in the city square to watch her thrown out. Some yelled, others spat. One woman had thrown a stone that hit Mariel's shoulder. She didn't even flinch. The pain inside her was worse. She was once a healer in that city, a respected one. Her work had saved lives. She had always followed the rules. Until she broke the most sacred one. She had loved someone not of their kind, a human. His name was Bran, and he had died before their children were born. Their union, once a secret, had become a scandal. When her babies were born soft-skinned, blue-eyed, with quiet, curious stares, the council called them a threat. They called them unnatural. They said they would weaken the bloodline, weaken the future. So Mariel had been banished. Her chest was tight with fear and hunger. She had not eaten in 2 days. Her milk was drying up. The twins stirred weakly in her arms, barely strong enough to whimper. She paused beside a large rock, slumping to the ground. Her breath came in shallow gasps. She whispered to her children, "I won't let you die." But she didn't know how to keep that promise. The wild land stretched in every direction, empty, dry, full of poisonous winds and creatures that only came out at night. She had no map, no tools, no hope. Only the memory of Bran's voice and the warmth of her children's tiny bodies. A high-pitched whine broke the silence. Mariel looked up, heart pounding. A patrol drone hovered overhead, scanning her. She shielded her babies, turning her face away, but the machine circled slowly, taking its time. Then, without warning, it zipped off. Not to help but to broadcast her shame. Her exile was now entertainment, something others would watch and judge from behind screens. Her eyes stung. She stood and kept walking. Hours passed. Her mind drifted. She wasn't sure if she was still walking or dreaming. Then, in the distance, something metal caught the light. A set of shapes rising from the sand. An old mining station, abandoned years ago. She had heard rumors of one nearby, but no one had said it still worked. Mariel moved toward it with the last of her strength, each step heavier than the last. The door was rusted and thick, sealed with bolts. She knocked once. Nothing. She knocked again, this time harder. Still silence. Her knees gave out. She fell slowly, cradling her children as she curled around them on the ground. Her eyes blurred. Her arms ached. She whispered to the cold metal, "Please." Then everything went dark. Inside the station, cameras blinked. Screens lit up, tracking movement outside. A man sat behind a control panel, frowning at the image of the woman, and her children collapsed at his door. He was broad-shouldered, with a beard too long and clothes too worn. His name was Riven, and he had lived alone here for 3 years, ever since the mines dried up. He had no neighbors, no visitors, and no reason to trust anyone. But something about the woman on the screen made him pause. She looked alien silver-haired, marked by soft skin that shimmered under dust. But the way she held those children, the way she collapsed with them curled in her arms, made his chest tighten. He stood, hesitated, then walked to the main hatch. For a moment, his hand hovered over the door control. Then, with a quiet sigh, he pressed the unlock button. The door slid open with a hiss. A wave of warm air rushed out into the cold. Mariel stirred faintly as the light hit her face. She opened her eyes just enough to see a tall figure standing above her. He didn't look angry or afraid, just surprised. Her lips moved, barely. A whisper, "Help them." Then she fainted. Riven caught her before she hit the floor. He looked down at the two tiny faces nestled in her arms. Their skin was pale, their breaths quick but steady. He shook his head. "This is going to be a long night," he muttered gently. He carried her inside. For the first time in years, the door stayed open longer than a minute. The air inside the station buzzed with quiet machines. Lights glowed softly on the walls. Riven laid Mariel on a narrow bed, wrapped the children in thermal cloths, and set about making a pot of thick broth. He didn't know who she was or where she came from. He didn't know what kind of trouble might be following her. But he knew this. Someone had knocked on his door, and he had opened it. And somewhere in the sky above, a ship stirred quietly, turning its scanners toward the ground. Below, the silence would not last long. The sun was just beginning to rise over the dry plains when Mariel woke to warmth. Her body no longer shook from cold, and her babies, wrapped in soft cloth, slept soundly beside her. She blinked at the silver ceiling above, unfamiliar and smooth. It wasn't the sky. It wasn't the city she had been cast out from. It was something else. Her breath caught as panic rose. Her children, were they safe? A calm voice broke the silence. "They're right. Here." She turned her head. The human from the doorway was sitting on a chair near the bed, sipping from a cup of something warm. His beard was scruffy, his clothes worn but clean. He looked at her like he was waiting, not judging. There was no anger in his eyes, no disgust. Just curiosity. Mariel sat up quickly, then winced as her muscles protested. Her voice came out, rough and dry. "Where am I?" "My outpost," he replied. "You were half frozen when I found you. Lucky your kids are strong." She looked down at her twins, touched their cheeks, checked their breathing. Still alive, still hers. That was all that mattered. "Why did you open the door?" she asked without looking at him. He gave a small shrug. "You knocked." That answer made no sense. Her people never opened doors for strangers. They shut them, locked them, forgot what was outside. She stared at him, unsure. "You gave me food, a bed. You haven't asked anything in return." He tilted his head, amused. "Do I need to?" Her voice grew sharper. "What do you want? My body? My children? Are you planning to trade us? Sell us?" He nearly dropped his cup. "What? No. What's wrong with you?" Memories flooded her mind. A healer who smiled, and then poisoned her. A commander who promised safety, then dragged her to the council. Every kindness before had come with a knife, her fists clenched. She was ready to run, to fight, whatever it took. The man sat very still, then slowly pulled a faded photo from his pocket. "This was my sister. She died protecting her baby during a raid. That child lived because a stranger opened a door." He showed her the image, a woman smiling, a boy in her arms. "That stranger wasn't me. But I swore, if I ever had the chance, I'd do what they did. No deals, no price." Mariel stared at the photo, her heart pounding. She didn't speak. Something in his voice sounded honest, tired, real, maybe even broken like her. Later she sat quietly at the table, sipping from a bowl of strange soup. The twins were close by, wrapped in clean fabric, warm and quiet. The man Riven, he said his name, was moved around the small room, fixing things, mumbling to himself as he worked on wires and panels. The station smelled like metal and steam. It was ugly and old, but it felt alive. She still didn't trust him, not fully. But she hadn't felt safe in years, and for the first time, her babies were warm and breathing. That was enough. Then the alarm beeped. Riven looked up from his console, frowning. A red light blinked on the screen. "That's not good," he muttered. Mariel stiffened. "What is it?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. His fingers tapped quickly across the screen. Then he looked at her, serious now. "A ship's entering orbit. No ID, no signal. But it's headed right for us." Her heart dropped. "My people." Riven grabbed an old rifle from the storage room and tossed a small earpiece to her. "Whatever happens," he said, "don't open the door unless it's me." She nodded, too stunned to speak. Her mind raced. The Sentinels would be coming. The Council's elite enforcers. They wore white masks and spoke with voices like cold metal. They didn't kill, they erased. Entire families, entire names. She wrapped her twins in thermal cloths and held them close, whispering soft promises she wasn't sure she could keep. Outside, the ship landed in a storm of dust. 4 figures stepped out tall, armored, glowing. Red slits where their eyes should be. Behind them hovered a drone, recording every move. Of course, the Council always wanted a show. One of them approached the door and spoke through the external speaker. "We seek Mariel, exile of Celeran Colony. Hand her over. No harm will come to the structure. Refuse, and we burn this place down." Mariel held her breath. A pause. Then Riven's voice crackled through the speaker, sharp and unshaken. "She's not here. Try another rock." The Sentinels didn't wait. One raised a hand. "Scan confirms hybrid signatures." The voice grew. "Colder. You protect filth." There was silence. Then Riven answered louder this time. "Maybe, but she's my filth now." Without warning, the station's defenses came alive. Hidden turrets spun from the walls. Red beams of light lanced through the air. One sentinel dropped, sparks flying from his armor. The others spread out, returning fire. Inside, Mariel covered her children's ears as the world outside exploded. Riven moved like a shadow, triggering traps, dodging fire, laying mines. He wasn't a soldier, but he had been alone long enough to learn every inch of the outpost. He didn't try to win. He tried to outlast. One sentinel crawled through a side vent. The moment he dropped inside, a sonic bomb detonated. Another was caught in an electric snare that fried his mask. A third kicked open a side door and pointed a weapon at the hallway only, to fall to a clean shot from Riven's rifle. The last retreated behind a rock and called up to the ship. "Target defended by advanced human. Recommend orbital strike." Mariel heard it through the earpiece. She pressed her babies tighter, her heart pounding. "They're going to wipe us out." Riven's voice came next, calm, focused. "Not if I speak first." He opened a line to the ship. "This is an independent outpost under human jurisdiction. Fire a single shot, and you start a war." Silence. Then a new voice replied, cold, in control. "You interfere in Celeran law. Stand down." Riven leaned toward the mic. "We don't erase children. We raise them. We don't punish love. We protect it." Another silence. Then, slowly, the ship began to rise. The remaining sentinel turned and walked away. The wind returned. Riven stumbled back inside, bleeding from a cut along his arm. Mariel ran to him, her voice cracking. "You fought them for me?" He sank into a chair. "Yeah, I hate being told what to do." Mariel laughed. It was a strange sound, dry, unsure, but real. She looked at him, really looked, and saw something more than a rescuer. Maybe, just maybe, she had found the first person who wouldn't close the door. Asterisk words spread faster than either of them expected. Someone had leaked the footage, grainy images of a battle in the dust, of masked soldiers falling to old traps and a lone human standing his ground. It showed Mariel, tired and fierce, protecting her children. It showed Riven, bleeding and unflinching, refusing to hand her over. The story reached far corners of space. At first, a few underground news streams picked it up. Then it went wider pirate. Networks, fringe colonies, even encrypted feeds in neutral sectors. No one knew exactly who shared it first, but it didn't stop. The title was simple: She Knocked. He opened the door. Riven didn't like it. He muttered about privacy, about keeping quiet, about not wanting the whole galaxy knocking on their door next. Mariel watched him as he adjusted the outpost's failing power lines, shaking his head at every new message coming in. But he still built stronger shields. He still stayed up every night improving defenses. Because he knew attention didn't just bring hope, it brought danger too. 3 days after the fight, the first stranger arrived. He was young, thin, maybe 16. His skin had the shimmer of mixed blood, half alien, half human. His name was Teo, and he said nothing at first. He just stood at the edge of the outpost until Mariel walked out to him. "Why are you here?" she asked. Teo looked up with wide eyes and said, "Because I saw you. And I didn't think people like me could survive." Mariel brought him inside. Then came more. A pair of sisters with green scales and sharp eyes, sent away by their father for shaming the bloodline. An old man missing one leg who claimed he once fought in the border wars. A silent girl with metal implants in her spine and a mind that could talk to machines. They came with stories, with scars, with questions. Riven didn't ask why. He just started clearing space. The outpost changed quickly. It was no longer a shelter. It was becoming something else: a camp, a refuge, a spark. Every room filled. Every hallway echoed with voices. They fixed broken walls, cooked together, trained in the dusty fields outside. Mariel watched it all grow and couldn't believe it was real. Her babies giggled for the first time in days. She was surrounded by people who were different, strange, lost, and yet they all belonged. One night, she stood by a fire with Teo and asked him why he stayed. He answered simply, "Because you fought back." But it wasn't all light and warmth. A new message arrived. This one wasn't a call for help. It was a bounty listing. It showed Mariel's face, her children's too. 50,000 units. Dead or alive. Mariel froze when she saw it. The number wasn't just money, it was a message. The council was afraid. They didn't want her story spreading. They didn't want others like her rising. She showed Riven. He read it and only said, "Then we dig in deeper." From that moment, training began in full. Riven turned every scrap of metal into traps, sensors, barriers. He taught the younger ones how to move quietly, how to aim, how to think 2 steps ahead. Mariel taught healing, how to stop bleeding, how to mix herbs, how to calm fear with touch. The silent girl with the implants built a scanner system that could spot incoming ships before they reached orbit. They called themselves nothing, no flags, no names. Just people who refused to run anymore. One evening, as they ate together in the common room, an unexpected voice came through the main console. It was a council judge. An old man with a sharp face, once the very one who read Mariel's exile sentence. "You've made quite a mess," he said. Mariel stood still. "You made it first." The judge sighed. "You can still end this. Surrender yourself. Give up the children. The human can walk away unharmed. The outpost stays untouched." Riven stepped forward. "And if she says no?" The judge's face darkened. "Then we end it all." Mariel didn't blink. "It's already too late. They've already seen us." The screen went black. That night, Mariel sat alone under the stars. The sky was wide and full, and the wind was gentle. She held her babies close and thought about how far she had come. She remembered her city. The cold stairs, the locked doors. The way people whispered about purity, about laws, about how love should look. Then she looked around at this place. At the metal walls, the strange machines, the quiet sound of breathing from tents and bunks. These people didn't look like her. They didn't follow her customs, but they had opened their hearts. They had stood beside her. Riven joined her quietly, sitting with a soft grunt. "You never told me why you loved a human." She smiled faintly. "He listened, that's all. He listened when I was breaking." Riven nodded. "Sounds familiar." They sat in silence. Then Mariel said, "If I die and my children live, that's enough." "No," Riven said. "If you die, they'll lose more than a mother. They'll lose the one who showed them they could be more than survivors." She turned to him, eyes wet. "You believe that?" "I do." Then she stood, her babies in her arms. "Then we fight. Not just to survive, but to show them we were never a mistake." And in the quiet darkness, a new light blinked on the radar. The enemy fleet was on its way. The sky turned orange as the first enemy ships appeared, casting long shadows across the desert. Massive cruisers floated like monsters in the air, their engines low and rumbling. Dropships peeled off from the fleet, heading straight for the outpost. Inside the camp, everyone was quiet. No panic. Just steady breath and focused eyes. They had known this moment was coming. Now it was here. Mariel stood at the ridge, holding her babies close. She wore a robe patched with fabric from dozens of hands, each piece a gift from someone who had chosen to stay and fight. Behind her, the camp buzzed with movement. People of all shapes, colors, and species prepared for the final stand. Riven stood beside her, a rifle slung over his shoulder, a deep cut still healing along his arm. He looked at the sky and exhaled. "Well," he said, "they brought the whole army this time." Mariel didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the horizon. Her children, now stronger, slept peacefully in a shielded cradle nearby. For them, and for everyone else behind her, she would not run. Not again. The first wave hit hard. Dropships screamed down like knives. Troops in white armor stormed the sands, their weapons glowing with energy. But the camp was ready. Riven gave the signal, and hidden mines exploded in a wave of fire. Turrets spun to life, targeting the advancing soldiers. From behind cover, young fighters fired back with handmade weapons in quiet fury. They were not trained, but they were determined. A boy with glowing eyes threw an EMP grenade that shut down a sentinel walker before it could fire. An insectoid girl ran between the lines, dropping smoke bombs and pulling injured friends to safety. A one-legged engineer climbed into a battlesuit made from mining parts and charged forward with a roar. Mariel watched it all from the command post, giving short, clear orders to the earpiece Riven had given her weeks ago. Hold the south gate, reinforce the shield line. Move in teams, no one alone. The council had sent their best. Purifiers, elite troops, even sky drones, but they had not expected unity. They had not expected so many to stand together. And they had not expected Mariel to be more than just a mother with a secret. She was now a leader with a voice. Inside the enemy ship, a general frowned. "They're organized," he muttered. "We underestimated them." His second-in-command looked nervous. "Sir, the human is still active. We think he's the one who set the outer defenses. Then remove him." But Riven was already ahead. He knew the outpost better than anyone. He limped through smoke and rubble, patching wires, setting traps, dragging down fighters to safety. Mariel found him by a broken turret, bleeding again. "We can't hold them forever," he said. "I know," she replied. "That's why we switched to the plan." Plan Ember had been built in secret under the old ridge. A long-forgotten fuel line, buried deep beneath the surface. If triggered, it could destroy the enemy landing zone in one strike. It was risky, but it was their best shot. Mariel gathered a small team: Teo, the quiet girl with the implants, and 3 others. They slipped underground, moving fast while the camp above bought them time. Riven stayed behind to keep command, The tunnel was dark and hot. Dust choked the air. The fuel line pulsed like a sleeping heart. Mariel reached the control panel and began entering codes. Every second felt like an hour dot. Then she paused and pulled something from her pocket, a small hollow chip. She pressed record. If someone finds this, my name is Mariel. I was told I was unclean, that my children were a threat. But a man opened his door. He didn't see a mistake. He saw someone alive. She finished the message and tucked it beside the detonator. Then she nodded to the others. Let's do this. The blast was sudden and massive. Fire ripped through the ridge, sending sand and smoke into the sky. Enemy troops were thrown in every direction. Dropships spun out of control and crashed. The sky, once full of ships, emptied as the fleet pulled back in panic. In the command ship, the general slammed his fist against the screen. Retreat! He shouted, but it was too late. The flame had already been lit. Hours later, the battlefield was quiet. Smoke rose from broken machines. Armor pieces lay scattered. But the outpost still stood, bruised, burned, alive. Riven sat on a rock, his leg wrapped in cloth. His face was tired but calm. Mariel walked to him, her baby safe in her arms. She looked down at him and said, "We did it." He smiled. "Yeah, weird, right?" She laughed softly. "You never told me why you were living out here." He looked away for a moment, then said, "I was looking for something worth protecting, and now I've found it." Weeks passed. The story continued to spread. The footage of the battle reached leaders and rebels alike. People called it the stand at the edge. Protesters took to the streets. Laws began to crack. Colonies opened their borders to hybrids. Messages poured in, some angry, but many full of hope. Mariel was invited to speak at a tribunal on a neutral moon. She stood before leaders from 20 systems and said, "You don't have to like me, but you will see me. You will see us. We are not going away." And they listened. Back on Earth, near a silver lake, Mariel and Riven built a home. The old outpost was rebuilt, not as a bunker, but a school, a place for the forgotten, a place where no one would be turned away for being different. The final scene was simple. Mariel sat by the lake, watching her children play. A little girl with green skin asked, "Were you really thrown away?" Mariel smiled gently. "Yes, and that's how I found everything worth keeping."